Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a very late belated review of the Sandman Season 1. Now there will be spoilers throughout this review, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now the Sandman is a live action adaptation of the revered comic book series created by Neil Gaiman that ran from January 1989 to March 1996 on a DC Comics Vertigo label. It's very much a dark supernatural fantasy story involving a mystical being known as the Sandman or the Dream or Morpheus, and he has the ability to control and manipulate people's dreams and can put them in long phases of sleep. He has a realm known as the Dreaming, of which he rules over, and he's part of a group of 7 known as the Endless, who are also the personification of manipulators of dreams. Now the Dream is captured from a spell carried out by an occult ritual in 1916, and he's kept captive for over 106 years. When he eventually escapes, he sets about gaining revenge on his captures and also repairing all of the damage to his realm of the Dreaming that's been caused during his absence. Now the series pretty much sticks to the original premise, as we see the Dream seeking out certain objects that were stolen from him in order to rebuild his realm. During his quest, he has various allies who aid him in his quest, and he also comes across many antagonists such as the Corinthian, Lucifer, and some of his other siblings known as Desire and Despair. Now overall, as a series, The Sandman is a visually stunning adaptation. It's very well crafted, sophisticated as a fantasy series that starts off very strong in its first half but struggles to maintain the pace and level in its second half, and it really runs out of steam and, dare I say, becomes a bit pointless and underwhelming as it comes towards its final episodes. Now the first 5 to 6 episodes, the series really is that vivid, atmospheric, adult, gothic fantasy that so many were hoping it would turn out to be. We get a whole host of great effects and sequences, and also a lot of interesting and distinctive personalities and characters. And it was this part of the season that really made the story so compelling, and I was hooked all the way through, especially when we see the Dream visiting these different places trying to reclaim his certain artifacts. And it's great to see a fantasy series taken so seriously, and tonally there are so many vibes of the likes of Castlevania, Sleepy Hollow and Game of Thrones, and it mixes all of these elements so well. There are some beautiful aesthetics that the showrunners went to great efforts to try and recreate the look of the comic book series, and that's always great to see. In the first half of the season, we also get a whole host of established actors who play their parts very well in what I believe are the most compelling arcs of the season. Whether it's Charles Dance as Roderick Burgess, who sets the original spell to capture the Dream in the first couple of episodes, we later on see Jenna Coleman appear as Joanna Constantine, a controversial gender change of the famous DC character John Constantine, who of course tracks down dark supernatural beings. We have Gwendolyn Christine as Lucifer Morningstar, who we all know of course playing Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones, and in this role here she is the ruler of hell, and this is another gender switch, but I think overall she plays the role very well, and she's most prominent in episodes 4 and 5. We have Jody Richardson as Ethel Cripps, or Madame Dodier, who stole certain items from Roderick Burgess when they were together, and she uses them to lengthen her lifespan into the modern day setting. We later on have David Felwis, who's also very good as John Dee, who is the son of Roderick and Ethel, and he wants to use the famous ruby to change the world into what he deems to be far more honest and truthful. In particular, he's very prominent in a standout episode titled 24/7, which is a very eerie and very disorientating entry that shows the potential of John Dee as what could have been and perhaps should have been the season's overall villain. This episode itself really catches you off guard in the beginning when we see John Dee sitting in a diner coming across various other characters. When watching it at the start, I was wondering where exactly it was going, but by the end it proves to be very impactful, and I just wish that the second half of the series has stayed on the same trajectory as what we had set at the end of this particular episode. I also enjoyed Ferdinand Kingsley as Hob Golding, somebody who regularly meets up with the Dream in another standout arc, this time from episode 6, where we question the whole idea of living life and what exactly our purpose is, and Golding is somebody who's selected by the Dream to meet up with him every 100 years or so in order to find out what exactly he strives to live for. So up until this point within the series, I think everything is going really great, and I was really immersed in the story and the overall characters. But it's at this point in the series where I think the show really loses its urgency, as the story focuses far more on the Vortex, also known as Rose Walker, and her brother Jed. Now, I'm not sure how important these characters are in the original source material, but for me, these characters are the least interesting within the show, and to focus on them so much in these penultimate episodes really sucks all the momentum out as what we saw in the first half of the season. There's also such a change in scale where there's far less world building across different realms and far more attention in the real world and people. In multiple scenes we see them throughout in homes and hospitals, and there's very little action or significance, and it's almost as if the showrunners expanded all of the budget and scope in the first 6 episodes and couldn't afford that same level for the last 4, so they had to go down a far more cheaper route, and the show really suffers because of it. I mean, to be honest, the Sandman is barely in it for these last 3 to 4 episodes, and I have to be honest, I did find myself getting really bored as to what exactly they were doing with this final story arc. And the main characters that were involved just didn't have the same impact as what we saw in the first 5 to 6 episodes. Overall, I would have rathered that we had all of the characters from the first half of the show have their roles extended much more throughout the entire season. Even when we look at the likes of the Coryphean, who was played very well by Bald Holbrook, for so long throughout the show we suggested that he is probably the main villain of the story, but his overall arc ends in such an anticlimactic way in what should have been a pivotal battle of the season when we see him confronting the Dream in the season finale, but this confrontation ends up falling so flat and it's very much overall like the second half of the season. Even other characters such as Despair and especially Desire felt really misused and underutilised, and again somebody like Desire I felt was going to be an overall substantial villain throughout the story, but this character is really sidelined. Again, I'm not sure on how much of a role she plays throughout the source material. Maybe she'll become far more important if the show manages to get a 2nd or 3rd season. But in terms of the show itself, to bring an interesting character such like this halfway through the show and then not really do anything, again, I think is a major flaw in how they produce this overall series. So despite the lacklustre second half of the season, I still think there is enough here, especially in the first half, to keep me invested for a 2nd season, where I believe if they keep the focus far more on the supernatural and gothic elements and concentrate on the wider universe that we saw built in the first 4 to 5 episodes, and also keep far more focus on the interesting characters such as Lucifer and Desire, then I think a season 2 of The Sandman has potential to be a truly great fantasy series for a modern day audience. So if I had to give an overall score for The Sandman Season 1, I would give it a 6.8 out of 10. As I mentioned before, stunning visuals and aesthetics, a very intense mood and atmosphere in the first half, but sadly was let down by a lacklustre and less involving second half of the show. This is still a very fine effort to adapt a very celebrated comic book series, and it's definitely proven to be a far more successful live action adaptation than what we've seen in the recent efforts on Netflix. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of The Sandman Season 1. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you are indeed a very hardcore fan of the comic book series, how did you feel they adapted this first season in terms of the comic book source material? What did you think about the various gender changes and race swapping of certain characters? Do you think that brought the show down, or do you think it had very little effect in terms of the overall story? How do you think they should approach this going forward for season 2? Do you think they should continue forcing through the diversity, or do you think they should go back to basics and retain much more the original ethnicity of the overall characters? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you have any other series on Netflix or Amazon or any other streaming platform that you'd look to see me review within the channel, then also let me know and I'll see if I can provide far more detailed commentary for you on those particular shows within the future. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.